World War II, the most devastating conflict in human history, engulfed Europe from 1939 to 1945. Among the countless battles and campaigns, a few pivotal moments turned the tide in favor of the Allies. This is the story of the turning point of World War II in Europe. World War II was one of the most devastating and transformative conflicts in human history. Spanning from 1939 to 1945, it engulfed the globe in a struggle for power, freedom, and survival. In Europe, the war saw numerous battles, strategic decisions, and pivotal moments that would shape the course of history. Join us as we delve into the turning points of World War II in Europe, exploring the events that changed the tide and led to the ultimate victory of the Allies. This is the story of courage, sacrifice, and determination. This is the turning point of World War II in Europe. To understand the turning points of World War II in Europe, we must first understand the prelude to the conflict. The seeds of war were sown in the aftermath of World War I, as the Treaty of Versailles left Germany humiliated and economically crippled. The rise of Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party in the 1930s, fueled by promises of restoring German pride and power, set the stage for a new conflict. By 1942, Axis powers led by Nazi Germany had expanded their control across much of Europe. The Allies, primarily composed of the United States, the Soviet Union, and the United Kingdom, were struggling to push back against this formidable force. Hitler's aggressive expansionist policies led to the annexation of Austria and the Sudetenland, followed by the invasion of Poland in September 1939. This act of aggression prompted Britain and France to declare war on Germany, marking the beginning of World War II. The early years of the war were dominated by the Blitzkrieg, or Lightning War, a strategy of rapid, overwhelming attacks that left the Allied forces reeling. In the spring of 1940, Germany launched a series of stunning offensives against Denmark, Norway, Belgium, the Netherlands, and France. By June 1940, France had fallen, and Britain stood alone against the Axis powers. The Battle of Britain, fought in the skies over England, was a critical moment in the early years of the war. Despite being outnumbered, the Royal Air Force managed to repel the Luftwaffe, marking the first major defeat for Hitler's war machine. In June 1941, Hitler launched Operation Barbarossa, the largest military invasion in history, targeting the Soviet Union. The Eastern Front would become the bloodiest theater of the war, with immense casualties on both sides. The initial success of Operation Barbarossa saw the Germans advancing deep into Soviet territory. However, the harsh winter, logistical challenges, and fierce Soviet resistance halted the German advance at the gates of Moscow. The Battle of Stalingrad, lasting from August 1942 to February 1943, was one of the deadliest and most significant battles of the war. The German Sixth Army, under General Friedrich Paulus, aimed to capture the city of Stalingrad to secure oil fields in the Caucasus and to deal a psychological blow to the Soviet Union. Despite initial successes, the Germans were met with fierce resistance. The Soviet Red Army under General Vasily Chukov defended the city street by street. The turning point came with Operation Uranus in November 1942, a massive Soviet counteroffensive that encircled the German Sixth Army. The defeat at Stalingrad shattered the myth of German invincibility and marked a decisive shift in the balance of power on the Eastern Front. From this point on, the Soviet Union would steadily push the Germans back towards Berlin. While the Soviet Union fought a brutal war of attrition on the Eastern Front, the Western Allies were preparing for a massive invasion to liberate Western Europe. On June 6, 1944, the course of World War II was forever altered by a single massive operation. This is the story of D-Day, the day that marked the beginning of the end for Nazi Germany. In 1944, Europe had been under the grip of Nazi occupation for almost 5 years. The Allied forces, comprising the United States, United Kingdom, Canada, and other nations, planned an ambitious operation to liberate Western Europe. This operation was codenamed Operation Overlord. The stakes were high. The success of this operation would not only free millions but also turn the tide of the war. The planning for D-Day was meticulous. It involved unprecedented coordination between land, sea, and air forces. The sheer scale of the operation made it one of the most complex military endeavors in history. Dr. John Smith, military historian, says, "The planning began years before the actual invasion. In 1943, the Allies chose Normandy, France, as the landing site. This decision was based on the need for a port and the element of surprise. Operation Overlord required extensive deception strategies, known as Operation Bodyguard, to mislead the Germans about the invasion location and timing." Dr. Emily Clark, World War II strategist expert, says, "Operation Bodyguard was crucial. The Allies created fake armies, complete with inflatable tanks and dummy landing crafts, to convince the Germans that the invasion would occur at Pas de Calais. As part of the preparations, the Allies amassed a vast armada of over 5,000 ships and landing crafts, supported by 13,000 aircraft. On the night of June 5, 1944, Allied paratroopers were dropped behind enemy lines to secure key positions and disrupt German communications. By dawn on June 6, the largest amphibious invasion in history was underway. The beaches of Normandy, codenamed Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juno, and Sword, were the primary targets. The American forces faced fierce resistance at Omaha Beach, where the rough terrain and fortified German defenses led to heavy casualties. Colonel Michael Turner, RET, military analyst, says, "Omaha Beach was a bloodbath. The Germans had fortified their positions well, and the Americans faced intense machine gun fire, artillery, and obstacles that made the landing extremely challenging. Despite the heavy losses, the Allies managed to secure all 5 beachheads by the end of the day. This success came at a high price, with over 10,000 Allied casualties. The establishment of a foothold in Normandy allowed the Allies to bring in more troops and supplies, leading to the liberation of France and eventually all of Western Europe. D-Day was not just a military operation. It was a turning point that demonstrated the resilience and determination of the Allied forces. Dr. Sarah Bennett, European history professor, says, "The success of D-Day was a combination of strategic planning, bravery, and the sheer will to fight against tyranny. It remains one of the most significant military achievements in history. This has been the story of D-Day, a day that changed the world forever." Allied forces landed on the beaches of Normandy, France, in the largest amphibious assault in history. Cut off from supplies and reinforcements, the Germans eventually surrendered in February 1943. The defeat at Stalingrad marked the beginning of a relentless Soviet advance westward. Meanwhile, in North Africa, the Allies were making significant gains. The North African campaign, particularly the Second Battle of El Alamein in October-November 1942, was crucial. Under the command of General Bernard Montgomery, the British Eighth Army defeated Field Marshal Erwin Rommel's Afrika Korps. This victory secured the Suez Canal and paved the way for the Allied invasion of Italy. The most famous turning point in Western Europe was the D-Day invasion of Normandy on June 6, 1944. Codenamed Operation Overlord, this massive amphibious assault involved meticulous planning and coordination among the Allied forces. Led by General Dwight D. Eisenhower, the Allies landed on 5 beachheads: Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juno, and Sword. Despite heavy resistance, particularly at Omaha Beach, the Allies established a foothold in France. The success of the Normandy invasion marked the beginning of the end for Nazi Germany, as the Allies began their push towards Paris and eventually Berlin. The success of the Normandy invasion, coupled with the subsequent liberation of Paris and the push towards Germany, marked a critical turning point in the war. The Western Front was now open, and the Allies were able to advance into Nazi-occupied Europe. In December 1944, Hitler launched a desperate counteroffensive in the Ardennes, known as the Battle of the Bulge. This surprise attack aimed to split the Allied lines and capture the vital port of Antwerp. Despite initial gains, the German advance was halted by determined American forces. The failure of this offensive depleted Germany's reserves and hastened the Allied advance into Germany. The German offensive was ultimately repelled, depleting their remaining reserves. The Allies then launched a relentless push into Germany, culminating in the fall of Berlin in May 1945. These pivotal battles, Stalingrad, El Alamein, Normandy, and the Bulge, collectively shifted the momentum in favor of the Allies. By May 1945, the relentless Allied advance led to the fall of Berlin and the unconditional surrender of Nazi Germany. The turning point of World War II in Europe was a combination of strategic victories and relentless determination. These moments not only marked the downfall of a tyrannical regime, but also paved the way for a new era of peace and reconstruction. With the unconditional surrender of Germany on May 8, 1945, the war in Europe came to an end. The aftermath of the conflict saw the continent in ruins, with millions of lives lost and the political landscape forever changed. The legacy of World War II continues to shape our world today. The sacrifices made and the lessons learned from this conflict remain a testament to the resilience and courage of those who fought for freedom. Thank you for watching our content. For more in-depth stories from history, please subscribe and stay tuned.
Leave a comment below and tell me what you think. Hit that like button if you enjoyed this video. Share this video with your friends who might be interested. Subscribe for more.